5 things that black people can do today to affect change in our community. Number 1, stop supporting rap music. Rap music profits from our destruction. They do nothing but promote negative stereotypes about black people. Number 2, stop voting for Democrats. Democrats have been using black people for the last 60 years. They do nothing but use us for our votes. Number 3, if you know a man that's not taking care of his children, call him and let him know that he's a disgusting piece of trash. And he's the reason why, the main reason why, the black community is in the situation that it's in right now. Number 4, stop supporting race hustlers like Black Lives Matter. They do nothing but profit from our division. And number 5, my favorite, stop looking at white people to fix our problems. Look at black folks to fix the problem, because we're the ones in it.
Hey, welcome back. It's your man Wise, and today we have a great show for you again. Once again, I have a special guest joining the channel, Miss Celeste Duffie, the author of The Ass Backwards Way to Move Forward. You can follow her on Celeste_Duffie on YouTube, Celeste_Duffie on YouTube. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment down below. I appreciate all the love and support. Give me 1 second. Let me bring Celeste in. Hey, Celeste, how you doing today?
Hi, Wise. I'm so excited to be back. How are you?
I am outstanding. I'm blessed. I'm highly favored. I'm looking forward to getting into this show. Before we go, I want you to give people just a brief synopsis of your book. Some folks, this might be the first time that they're seeing you. So just give them a brief synopsis.
Okay, well, thank you. So the book is called The Ass Backwards Way to Move Forward. It's a tongue-in-cheek guide to poverty and misery. And what I have done in the book is I have isolated and identified the 9 best behaviors that will guarantee that you can be poor and miserable in America. So if you want to guarantee that you'll be poor, I can show you exactly how to behave that can do nothing but result in poverty and misery. So I consider myself the Jay-Z of poverty, and the book is the blueprint.
I love that. I love that. Hey, the link will be down in the description box. So get you a copy of this book. Maybe get you 2. Buy it for yourself. Share one with someone else. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
About that movie. And we focus on the famous lines in that movie. The acting and the hello to my little friend and all that. But it's the beginning of that movie that matters. When those words are coming up on that screen, that's what matters. And those words say, in May 1980, Fidel Castro opened the harbor at Merrill, Cuba, with the apparent intention of letting some of his people join their relatives in the United States. Within 72 hours, 3,000 U.S. boats were headed for Cuba. It soon became evident that Castro was forcing the boat owners to carry back with them not only their relatives, but the dregs of his jails. Of that 125,000 refugees that landed in Florida, an estimated 25,000 had criminal records.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's up. That's what has happened in the United States right now. All this asylum-seeking lie, all this about refugees, no. What's happening is they're emptying out the dregs of their jails into the United States, into our communities. They're junking up our country. And yeah, we feel some kind of way about it because it's our country. That's right. It's our country. People like Vasquez and them, look how disrespectful they are. Now you just gave that man a resolution for his father's restaurant. And every time we get up and talk, he's working this room. Look at him. Look at him. But he wants his resolution for his father to be respected. Vasquez, Lopez, all them want their people to be respected, but they can't even give us the dignity for what we built for them. Ain't no question about it. Yeah, Black History Month, the American descendants of slavery. And I want you to know, Brandon Johnson, I understand what Breakmore's saying about we still on the plantation, but what you're looking at right now, this is what a free Negro look like. And I'm telling you, we're going to get our city back. We're going to stand for our people. We're going to get them out of our communities because they don't deserve to be there. Anytime they can't give us 3 lousy minutes of their attention while we sit here and watch y'all give them all kind of money, you watch us. We black out here. All right. And we gonna handle our business. Woman. You watch that. I'm a free black woman. All right. This is how we get down.
So angry.
Before she goes, that lady went off. And I love how she used the movie Scarface. It's something that everybody can relate to. I couldn't tell you how many times I watched that movie growing up. We more or less watched it for the dope dealing and the killing. Then we watched for learning really what was going on with the Cubans coming over here and why they came over. Most of us overlooked all of that. We just was all about just Scarface and Tony Montana. But I love the way she broke that down and compared it to what's happening right now here in the States. I love that. She came prepared. She came prepared and she gave Brandon Johnson the business. And we need to see more sisters not only going and speaking at these city council meetings, but coming with the facts, the data, and really taking the time to make sure that they get their point across as clearly and effectively as they possibly can. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that lady went viral. She went viral with this particular speech right here. Phenomenal.
Yeah, she was absolutely exercised. I did not know this bit of history about the beginning of the movie Scarface and how Tony Montana. I'm not as familiar with Scarface as I'm sure many people are. So that was actually really new to me, and it was interesting, but it's not unusual. We have to look at, and Thomas Sowell says that everything is new to those who don't know history. So it's very interesting because I went to Hawaii, and when I was in Hawaii and we were touring around, one of the guides told us an interesting story. They said that the people of Hawaii never wanted to become part of the United States. The native residents of Hawaii had no interest in becoming part of the United States. Who really was pushing the movement to become part of the United States was the owners of the pineapple plantations. And the owners of the pineapple plantations got together and they brought into the islands of Hawaii over 100,000 immigrants to work the pineapple plantations. And after they had worked the pineapple plantations for some time, they had lobbied and got them citizenship. And once they became citizens there, then they pushed the vote for Hawaii to become part of the United States. And it was that over 100,000 immigrants that pushed that. So now Hawaii is a state. But the native Hawaiian people never wanted to be that. And they were obviously not the first to do that. But we have seen that when people in positions of power are having difficulty with the actual citizen that they are supposed to be responsible to govern, and when those people they feel are not behaving, they are willing and historically have always been able to bring in populations to enforce their will on the people they're supposed to be in a relationship with of citizenry. They will bring other people in. So if people say, well, this isn't possible and no one's going to become a citizen and this group could never do, go back and look at history. Refer back again. Thomas Sowell said, everything is new unless you know history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's keep going with the video.
Angry here in Chicago, which has been a Democratic stronghold for most of its eternity. This year, we're working to turn Chicago red. We are so angry with Pritzker and with President Biden and with our mayor that we have decided that we're going to vote Republican this time around. Wow. That's just how angry we are. We are so angry that we are.
I want to stop it real fast and I want to keep it going. I know people are going to get upset because I stopped it, but is Harris, is she a liberal? Is that the role that she plays on Fox News? I don't watch Fox News like that, but is that the role that she plays?
I don't believe so. I think she has a show and then she's on like a panel show. And I think she kind of hosts a panel show. I'm sure that she is objective, but the tenor of the panel show definitely seems to lean conservative.
Got you. Okay. I say that because the look on her face when this sister said that we're trying to turn Chicago red, she had kind of a look of disdain from hearing that. So it just makes me think.
No, I think she leans conservative.
Oh, okay. Okay. We'll keep it going.
Willing and going to turn our backs on the Democratic Party. I sat in some of those city council meetings and I looked at and I watched the aldermen totally disregard the voices of the people. And when I was going down there, we were coming down every week in the hundreds. And what we said did not matter. And when we were talking about changing Chicago's status as a sanctuary city, and keep in mind, we still have a right to do that. Just like Biden has the right to put forth an executive order to change the crisis at the border, Chicago's mayor has the right to put forth an executive order to change Chicago's sanctuary city.
Will he do it?
Of course he will not do it. If he was going to do it, it would have been done. And remember, there was a vote within City Council where the ordinance to change it was struck down. And the mayor was the deciding vote.
Okay. So I want to play just a little bit. It's actually a clip from your Democratic mayor, Brandon Johnson, just after that City Council meeting yesterday that got pretty chippy. And at the end of the day, he is the one you are counting on in all of this, as you just said. It's his vote. It's his, in those meetings, it's his voice. It's his leadership that matters. Let's watch.
We're grateful that the state and the county is working towards providing more investments, even though we have to have a more substantive conversation about where those dollars will actually go.
So I just have one question. Chicago had a choice after Lori Lightfoot, who was breaking COVID protocols to go get her hair done and all sorts of things. They didn't have to go farther left with Brandon Johnson. Why did you vote for him?
I voted for Brandon Johnson because I knew him. I voted for Brandon Johnson because I thought that he would be good for Chicago. I voted for Brandon Johnson because really I didn't do my homework. Because had I done my homework and paid attention to the alliances and who he was with and who groomed him, I would have known better and I would have voted differently. And that brings me to the challenge of really standing up and not just saying to Chicagoans or Illinoisans, but to all voters in this country, it is time for us to stand up and to vote our self-interest. We vote along party lines, especially as African Americans, and that needs to change. We need to start voting for people who are going to promote our self-interest. And that may not be a Democrat, and it may not be a Republican. It may be an independent candidate. It may be a Green Party candidate. But I think that now we have come to a point in this country where we have to stop marrying ourselves to party, stop voting along ethnic lines, because we're seeing that that is not working for us. And so that is why I will be voting Republican for the first time.
Wow, that is a lot. That's a lot of change. And it only took 3 years with one president to undo what you said, a lifetime of Democratic voting in Chicago, at least for you. Does it make a difference if Republicans come to see you this election cycle and talk about this issue on the ground in Chicago?
I think the Republicans need to come and see us. I think they need to come and talk to us because let me just say this, that the Republican Party has not been spotless. And there are certainly some issues that we would love to discuss with them that I think that we can have some common ground on. Okay. I think that we can agree to be disagreeable on some issues. But yes, this is the perfect time for the Republican Party to come into the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, and sit down and talk to the people because we are looking for change.
Carter Truss, God bless you. Thank you so much. You put a lot on a lot of people's minds today.
All right. Whew. I'm glad to see it. I'm glad. It's unfortunate that, especially out there in Chicago and cities like New York, that they've had to really go through some tough times and really tough experiences. And they've kind of been force fed the red pill. I don't think they wanted it. They obviously didn't want it, but they've been force fed it by the Democrats and the policies that they've been voting for almost 100 years. Do you realize that the city of Chicago hasn't had a Republican mayor since 1931? 1931. We're talking, what, over 90 years they've been voting for Democrats in this city? Not to mention, the last mayoral race, there wasn't a Republican that even decided to run. All the candidates were Democrats, every last one of them. A Republican didn't run because they knew we're not even wasting our money. It doesn't make sense campaigning there. You can't win as a Republican in the city of Chicago. So they didn't even run a person. That's how steep these people are in the Democrat Party. Now, my assumption is, I believe her name was it Trust? Miss Trust? Was that her name?
I'm not sure.
I've seen her on a multitude of occasions. I never get her name, though. They just seem like they just talk to her and ask her questions, but they never actually give her the opportunity or ability to introduce herself. One of the things that stuck out to me is she said that there are some things or issues with the Republican Party that we would just have to agree to disagree on. I would be interested to hear what those things are. My guess would be the Roe versus Wade situation, which I don't even think that's something for Black people should be a disagreeable topic, in my opinion, especially when we know that, we've led the nation, in pregnancy terminations, and we've killed off a third of our population behind it. I was watching Bishop Wooden. I did a video on him a couple days, reaction to him a couple days. But since doing that, I've really been, watching his services. I watched the Bible study on Thursday and some other things. I really, really appreciate, his preaching. I really do. But he had brought up something, in the Bible study. They were down at a pro-life rally. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, in Virginia, they want to pass a law that pregnancy terminations can happen all the way up to 9 months. And they were there, demonstrating and protesting against that bill having the ability to even be voted on. It's crazy that people even want to do that, but I don't want to get into this or get into that on this particular show. That's a deep rabbit hole right there. But he did bring up something. Right now, Black Americans sit at about 11% of the population. We're about 45 million. We're about 45 million people. That also includes Hispanics who consider themselves Black and people that are biracial who consider themselves Black. So in the grand scheme of things, it's really about 30 million that are actually what some of the other folks would call, quote unquote, FBA's foundational Black Americans. It's about 37 million. He ran down the list. We've had it's not quite 20 million pregnancy terminations.
22.
It was 22 million. And he said, he also said, he was like, if they're promoting that number, it's probably more. It's probably more than what they're actually telling you. But he's like, we should be sitting right now at 65 to 80 million strong in this country, and that would put us at somewhere around 18 to about 23% of the population in this country, had it not been for the fact that we've been responsible for killing our own children before they even get an opportunity to sip, to get a sip of air, before they even got a chance. And then we can't understand why, our voter block is dwindling and why we don't have the power that we don't have the power that we feel like we deserve as being the one group of people that's actually been here since the inception of the United States of America. So I would assume that is the quote unquote thing that we'd have to disagree on, I would assume that's one of those things, which I just don't think that's something that it should be. But what are your thoughts on Chicago voting against their own interests for, at this point, almost 100 years, allowing a race when we know Lori Lightfoot and her, mayoral administration was awful. And when you thought that they couldn't do worse, it got worse. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my gosh, first of all, God bless the people in Chicago and the Democrat Party. I am concerned. As you know, the Democrat Party is having their convention in Chicago this summer, I believe in August. I'm very concerned for how they're going to manage that when we are seeing on network news, we are seeing all over the internet that there is real anger and real frustration in Chicago. And it's really amazing to me what's happening right now politically. So if you would take the Republicans, clearly there is a divide in the Republican Party. The divide is kind of very pronounced. Everybody understands it. It's sort of the Trump side and everybody else. You're either one or the other. The Democrat division and fissure is a little bit different. So you've got all these sort of maybe the Obama coalition or all these people who were previously under the big tent of the Democrat umbrella now just fracturing. So you've got, sort of a lot of what you called foundational Black Americans, in New York, Chicago, places like that, who are, hopping mad over the immigration issue. Then you have sort of the youth and the Arab communities hopping mad over the Israeli-Hamas issue. So you're getting all of these little fine point, and I don't mean that in a diminutive way, but fine point issues that are splintering this coalition that seems to be loosely held together and very, very vulnerable at the moment. So I'm looking at the Black people in Chicago, and I have one thought. The first thought is that I'm amazed over the past couple of months at how exercised and animated Black people in Chicago are over illegal immigration, but it doesn't seem so much in terms of murder and crime. So that to me is a very interesting idea. For some reason, murder and crime seems to be a little bit more palatable than illegal immigration. But you know what? People have a right to pick their fights and their battles, and maybe this is the one they pick. So, good for them. I also think, and the comment that you brought up about the woman saying that there was some problems with the Republican Party as well, to me is a red flag. This is a warning sign for Black people who are looking out of anger to punish their Democrat people who have governed them and want to, in a vote of anger, move to the Republican Party. I want to be very cautious to two groups. First, the group of people that are leaving in anger the Democrat Party and want to pull the lever for Republicans. And second, the group of Republicans that are standing on the sidelines, jumping up and down, being happy that they may be getting broke off a large portion of Black voters that they haven't seen in the previous past. Here's the issue. The issue is this: if you are a liberal-minded person who is angry because the government isn't doing enough for you and hasn't done enough for you, the Republican Party is going to have a hard time incorporating you, because the majority of the Republican Party is a group of people that does not want government doing much for anybody.
Absolutely.
So you're going to leave people who told you they don't care about you to go to a group of people who are saying, we don't want the government doing too much caring for us. Mm-hmm. And I think Black people may be on the verge of becoming politically homeless. I'm not sure where they can go.
Wow. I agree with that. Now, I fall into the category of I would want the government out the way and give me the ability to just make the moves that I want to make. That would be my preference. Unfortunately, we have a lot of brothers and sisters out there around the country. Trust me, I see them in my comment section screaming about reparations and screaming about the government needs to be doing this, that, and the third for them. And if you decide that you want to vote for the Republican Party, you need to understand that those aren't things that they are going to provide for you. They're not even, and honestly, they should not tell you that, hey, we're going to give you these things, because all they would be doing is the exact same thing that Democrats have been doing to you guys for 100 years that, or 60 some odd years that black folks really have been voting for Democrats en masse. So I think people need to take some time to really do some research, really get a full understanding of what the party is about. The one thing that I do appreciate about the Republicans is at least you know where they stand, and hey, these are the things that they believe in, and you know exactly where they stand, and you can make a choice to say, you know what, I can get on board with this or I can't. The Democrats on the other, the Democrats on the other hand, they're the party of grifters. They're the party that will tell you anything they have to tell you in order to get your vote. They're like that dude in high school that will tell you anything that he needs to tell you to be able to, to sleep with you or get the draws or whatever you want to call it. He'll say anything. Now, after he gets what he wants, he might not ever talk to you again after that. And that's the Democrat Party. You'll see him in 3.5 years, when it's election season. That's the next time you'll see him. And then they'll be whispering sweet nothings in your ear all over again. But they know that they have zero intent on offering you anything that they said that they would, or giving you anything that they said that they would give you. I think we need to get a little more astute. And I'm sorry for not knowing the sister's name, but I do appreciate that she herself admitted, because a lot of folks will not admit, I messed up. I did not take the time to research the candidate, and I only voted for him because I knew him. I didn't know who he was groomed by. I didn't know who was actually funding his campaign. I didn't know who was pulling the puppet strings. I didn't take the time to research it. So that right there lets me know that, or I'm not going to say let me know. That right there makes me feel good. One, that she could admit I made a poor choice, because the first step towards redemption is recognizing or acknowledging that I made a mistake. I made a poor choice. And then you can move on from there. So I appreciate her doing that. And I hope that other people out in Chicago and New York, and honestly, black folks all across the country, can acknowledge, hey, we've been making some poor decisions when it comes to voting, because we've been voting based off of identity. We've been voting based off of, sweet nothings being whispered to us, lies that we know are lies, because most black folks know that what they've been told are lies. When you get the same thing over and over again, even deep down inside, you don't want to believe it, but deep down inside, these are lies. And I'm glad that she was willing to admit it. And I hope that maybe it convicts some other people to say, you know what? I made a poor choice. I only voted for him because he was a brother and I liked his haircut. I only voted for whatever the reason was. But you did not take the time to research who he is, what his policies were, who he was being funded by, and who's the person that is really pulling the puppet strings on the candidates. And I can appreciate that.
Well, I agree with you 100%. That to me shows the level of integrity that the woman has, because she's reflective and she's saying, hey, I was part of the problem here. I assisted in this, and now I've got to make a personal change and lead others to make that change, to self-correct. I respect that just like you do, Wise. You're absolutely correct on that. I certainly respect it. And I'm not saying that Black people shouldn't vote for Republicans or shouldn't continue to vote for Democrats. I think Black people are going to have to sort of come to an understanding about government. Part of the reason you're not getting what you want is because government is not designed to give it to you. Now you have a group of people on the one side who either want to do, on the Democrat side, who want to do one or two things. They either want to rejigger the government to make it do something it's not designed to do, or they want to lie to you and tell you they will when they know they can't. Or you have the Republican side, which is simply saying, we're not even going to try because we already know the government is incapable of functioning that way. Well-functioning governments function well when they do little, and they do little well. You can't have governments that do a lot. So running around and saying, well, I didn't get what I want from the Democrats, so I'm going to go and demand the Republicans give me what I want. Maybe what the truth is that the only person who's going to give you what you want, and the only person who's, as an individual, and the only people who are going to give Black people what they want is Black people themselves. That in fact, what it is we want, we're not going to be able to go to anybody to get it. We are going to have to birth it and create it within us and give it to ourselves. Functioning governments are not designed to do that.
I would agree. That's 100% right. And that's the thing, you know, in one of the videos I did the other day, I kind of got on a tangent about reparations, and I kind of got on a tangent about how good things were during the Trump administration, during that 4-year stretch. And honestly, probably about during the administration itself and about a year or two after the fact, because it took a while. It took about 2 years before Biden's plan. I mean, the immigration thing, that started immediately, but some of the other things that happened, it took about a year, maybe a year and a half before we really started feeling, the pain from a lot of the policies that were implemented in the very beginning of Joe Biden's administration. But a lot of Black people don't really, I think they know because they lived it, but I don't think they really know how good things were when the path to home ownership in the Black community had never been as possible as it was during that time frame. We actually reached almost 50% home ownership during that time frame. That's a feat that had never been prior to. When you looked at the household income, it came up $4,000. Over 1 million people in the Black community alone lifted themselves up out of poverty because the economy was booming. There was so much money. There were so many jobs. There were so many opportunities. More businesses started during that time frame. I've had conversations with older people, older brothers in the gym. I've had a multitude of conversations with them, trying to educate them. And a lot of them, they don't know policies. So when I'm explaining to them, hey, these are the policies that were implemented, and this is how those policies helped us, I get told, there you go, talking those policies. And I'm like, that's what we're supposed to be voting based off of, policy. All of that other stuff, it means absolutely nothing. Talk is cheap. Just the policy. That's all I care. I don't care about rhetoric. I don't care about how brash a person is. I don't care about any of that. I just want to know what your policies are. And I will make I want to have the ability to make an educated decision.
Yeah, I think it's just amazing. And I'm not even going to go so far as to say I know what the interest of Black people are. But I do know this. I do know that, and I blame the school system, to be frank, because people seem to not be able to contextualize their thinking. If somebody stands on the debate stage and says, day one, I am going to declare war on the fossil fuel industry, you should assume that the next day gas is going up. Mm-hmm. It's going to go up. And not only gas, but then also food, eggs, chicken, everything that is shipped. Most of what our goods are in America, most of what we're consuming and what we need to sustain our basic standard of life is shipped to us in what? Trucks that use what? Diesel. So a war on fossil fuel is basically you saying, I'm putting a tax on everything you buy and everything you need. So I too have talked with Black people, friends, coworkers, family, all types of folks who, or even early in the administration, would talk about how the price of eggs had gone up and how gas is so high, and had no understanding. There was a complete disconnect to those events to the idea that maybe the war on fossil fuels is causing this. You can go to people and ask them, well, why do you think gas is so high? Egg, it wasn't high, 6 months ago. Or why do you think eggs are costing more this year than they cost last year? They didn't recreate how to make eggs. Bread has been the same recipe for 1,000 years. Some kind of yeast, water, and salt. We haven't changed the recipe of bread so dramatically. So why were you able to get bread at this price, and now all of a sudden you're getting bread at this price? The fact that people have an inability to have common sense thinking and how to put the events that are happening to them in a context that would allow them to make good choices for themselves, whether those choices are about voting or anything else. When you are unable, when you're receiving information that you can't relate to anything, and that you cannot understand it in context, you are bound to make terrible decisions in all areas of your life.
I would agree with that. I think some of it has to do with the fact that we are an emotional people in general. We're some of the most, and we don't know we don't hide our emotions. We're very emotional. They know that we're emotional, and we're unable to hide it. When a black person is happy, you'll know they're happy. They're dancing. They'll get up and do a jig. When they're upset, you'll know they're upset. We don't hold anything. We just don't. And I think that has been used against us. I think you have a lot of older people that did experience, Jim Crow and things of that nature. So when they hear certain words, certain words trigger. So when they hear the term racist, that triggers them because it sends them back 60 years ago, 70 years ago, to a time where things were really bad in this country. But
I don't know about all that. My parents grew up in the segregated rural South and always spoke glowingly about their childhood. They were having a lovely time. And this is not to say, I remember when I had watched movies on television about the Montgomery bus boycott and Martin Luther King. I loved all that stuff, still do. And I remember asking, my mom, and, did you ride the back of the bus? And what was that like? No, we all had cars, and there was no bus in our town. So I think that we interpret that experience as being the experience of all Black people, and it certainly was the experience of some Black people, but it wasn't the experience of all Black people. And my parents certainly, and partly because of geography, forced to be that way. They didn't have public transportation. They didn't have these issues where they could, specifically need to ride and have to be in the back of the bus. Those things weren't available where they lived. So what they had to do was have their own ride. And what they learned is a level of self-sufficiency that they had to have to be able to live, to survive, and to live cooperatively, even with the white people who were their neighbors and people who lived in the same rural area that they did. Everybody had to sustain themselves. And when people were sustaining themselves, I'm not sure that they had as much strife and acrimony as when people had to come into conflict over resources, over sharing resources. And that is for me, a much larger tale. This is not in any way to exclude or to excuse the poor treatment and horrible treatment that Black people suffered. I know it's wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong. And there's absolutely no excuse for it. So I'm not even saying it in an excusing way, but it is to say that a great lesson from that and from our history, we are extremely resilient people. We have made amazing gains, not only in this country. We have absolutely, we say we built this country. We have had inventions. We have been a wonderful and amazing contribution. I don't understand why we don't take that mantle that is our actual history and use that for our lives today.
I would agree with that. I think it goes back to the school system. I think that the American public schools are indoctrination centers, and they have been for a very long time, which is the reason why we have a Black History Month. But every year they talk about the same 2 or 3 people every year, but ignore the plethora of successful Black people, communities, people that were business owners. Because I think that, again, I go back to saying that we're emotional. So if you were taught certain things, they wouldn't be able to utilize the situations from the 40s, 50s, and 60s that were negative. If you actually knew, yeah, Jim Crow did exist, but guess what? During Jim Crow, we actually owned hotels, we owned grocery stores, we had our own gas stations. We, in some cities, they didn't ride the bus with white people because they owned the bus company. They had their own buses, they had their own cab companies in some places. I know for sure out in certain cities in North Carolina, they had them. Down in Alabama, certain ones, they had them. You know, when you look at A.G. Gaston, who started the, first Black-owned life insurance company because out of necessity, because there wasn't a life insurance company for Black people during that time frame. And that life insurance company still exists today. When you look at, C.J. Patterson and company who, started a car company back in the late 1800s. If we actually knew the things and how much of an asset we have been to this country, opposed to just learning about Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King. Who else? What's another one that they give us? Maybe Frederick Douglass is another that they give us, that they talk about. Those are kind of like the three pillars right there that they talk about, but they never go into the entrepreneurs. They never go into Madam C.J. Walker. There has been a movie, so I will say that she has received her flowers of late, but there's a lot of people that when that movie came out, that was the first time they ever heard of her. She should be all in the history books for in our educational system. She should be. The brother that, performed the first open heart surgery, and forgive me, I cannot think of his name right now off the top of my head, but the guy who created the stoplight that everybody uses every daggone day. Garrett A. Morgan. There's been, the value that we've added to this nation is unrivaled by any other group of people that have come here. But unfortunately, a lot of us don't know. Now, I learned a lot of this stuff because I grew up in the South. I grew up in the Atlanta area, and I went to a high school that was 99% Black. So when I was in high school, in the announcements, you know how they have announcements in the morning? We used to get every day, today in Black history. So every day you would find a nugget of something that happened in Black history. Now, of course, I guess I'm one of the fortunate, few Black people that went to a Black high school that had the Black principal and the Black vice principals, and majority of our teachers were people that looked like me. So they were really trying to pour not only just what was taught in the school book, but they was also pouring into us some of these, other historical people out there that needed to be taught. So we got taught something completely different. And I remember when I joined the military in 99, I got told, you are the blackest Black person that I've ever met. And this, mind you, this is from a Black person because I'm telling them about these things that I've learned in school and these people. And I've never heard of these people before. And I was like, y'all didn't learn this in school? They didn't teach y'all this? So I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that in the public school system, they've done us a disservice. But then I also would say that I think some of our parents and our grandparents have done us a disservice because if we can't put everything on the school system to teach us and our children. Some of it, we got to take some of the responsibility ourselves and say, okay, hey, this is what you're getting into school. Now let me give you some additional game on who we actually are for real. Let me put you on something. These are the things that I did with my kids. There's a book that came out by Shamari Wells called Black Fortune. Are you familiar with that book?
No.
You never heard of it? Oh man, phenomenal book. And it's just a list of Black folks that started businesses during the Jim Crow era and in the 1800s. And that's how I learned about like C.J. Patterson and Sons. I didn't know that Black folks had a car manufacturing company that was rivaling Ford at the time. They went out of business because they ran out of capital. They couldn't keep up. They went out of business, I believe, in like maybe the 50s or 60s or so. But they had a car company. and they were manufacturing cars. These are black folks. Why isn't that being taught in our schools? So I think a lot of us, if you actually knew who your people were, we would have a little more
esteem.
There you go. There you go. We'd have a lot more esteem for us, and we would not play this victim role, because when you look at the fact that Madam C.J. Walker, the first self-made woman millionaire, she's not the first female millionaire. Everybody always says that. She's not. There was a lot of women that were millionaires because their husbands passed and they were left millions of dollars as widows. We've seen that happen time and time again. That's why I keep saying that sisters need to get married. Get you a good man, not a bum, a good man, because when that man passed, he can leave you some things, you know. But when you hear about Madam C.J. Walker and the fact that she was self-made, started a company from scratch and built really the first MLM business. No other business like that had existed prior to that. She started that in the early 1900s. So when you got people like this, you know, and the first black millionaire is a man in the 1800s, you know, late 1800s. I think he became a millionaire, you know, 1860s or so, or something along those lines, you know, and they said that he amassed $2 million in the late 1800s, black man, a fortune that would be equivalent to, I think it was almost like $500 million or something along those lines in today's money. So why are we not being taught these people? And the reason why is that they want you to think that you've always just been, you know, just desolate and lived a life of poverty and a despair, and you've never had anything. Because the thing is that if you can't see yourself or see somebody that looks like you, that accomplish things, you won't believe that you can actually accomplish it. So it makes it easy for the Angela Rye's and all these other kind of people to tell you you are a victim when she's worth $7 million. It makes it really easy to say, hey, we're all victims in this. She's worth $7 million to tell you that you're a victim. Now, I know good and well she don't think she a victim, but she gets paid handsomely to tell you that you're a victim, so you won't even try to do anything. Because if you think you're a victim, you won't actually try to do anything. It's like the elephant on that stake. He's big enough to rip that thing off, but they started him out early enough when he couldn't move it. And now it's here in his mind, he can't move it, although he has the strength to not only pull it, but rip that thing completely out the ground. So they're getting us here before we even get started. And they're crushing our young people's spirit before we even get a chance to get out here and really try to fight to survive here, or not survive, but thrive in America. It's awful, man. I don't suggest anybody in this day and age send your kids to public school. I don't suggest it. If you can homeschool your kids, you homeschool them. Well, you say, well, I'm a single mom. Okay. Don't be a single mom. How about that? Find you a good man that can hold the fort down, budget properly. You don't have to have the new Mercedes every year, ma'am. And you don't have to, if they approve you for a $600,000 loan, that don't mean you got to go buy a house at $600,000. Go find you a $350,000, $400,000. Keep your bills low and homeschool your kids and teach them the things that you know that they need to learn. Because if you send your kids to these schools, the government is going to tell you what your kids need to learn. And we've seen how that's worked out for us so far.
Well, the advantage in not teaching history, not just Black history, but all history, is, as I said before, it ensures that whenever you receive information, you have no context in which to view that information. So as you're saying, and you're right, if you don't have an idea of people who may have been like you or who have done things in the past, then that limits your ability to imagine yourself and what your own capacities might be. And I don't think that's just true for Black people. I think that's true for all people. And I think it's also true in terms of the American educational system. When we are, as Americans, don't understand our history, we can't say, oh, we know what this is because we knew when the government did that in 1945. Everything to us is new. Everything is new. And when everything is new and is out of context, you're not able to make good decisions. And I agree with you 100%. that parents should not be offshoring their children's esteem to schools. First of all, I don't even want the schools to teach, and please don't put anything else on them. These children, half of them can't read. Okay, they're not doing math at grade level. They need to concentrate on that. You can teach them how to read. They can go to the library and find out what they want to read. Their parents can work with them on finding their esteem, which is the job of parents, anyways. I'm concerned that the school can't fulfill its basic mission. So I'm not sure that they need to take on any extra at this point.
I agree with that 100%. And to be honest with you, I'm not at this point. I'm not even for sure the school wants to actually fulfill the basic, or what we once thought the basic mission was. I don't think they want to. I think they want to indoctrinate the kids with this alphabet rainbow community stuff, give you just enough to be a drone or a slave, and then kick you out into the world so you can fight for higher minimum wage, which cause everything else to go up. I think that's what they want. I don't think they want people, because the thing is that if they get you to a point to where you are of basic intelligence, that means that you would also have the ability to think freely. But if they dumb you down, you don't have the ability to think critically. And if you can't think critically, you won't look at policies and really critically analyze those policies. And that means that they can just tell you any old thing. Oh, he's racist. No context as to why, nothing. The way he said black, like what? They don't have to do anything. And you just say, yeah, they said racist. Did you hear how he said black?
This is sort of where like I said, there's a big caution on this. I don't doubt that the Republicans are going to pick up a number of black voters that they haven't seen in the past. I don't doubt that there'll be a whole bunch that are never going, and they're going to stay voting with the Democrats, and all of that is fine. What I think that black people need to do is really understand the purpose and the role and the history of government. And
Absolutely.
Once they do that, then maybe they can chart their course. But running from this bad boyfriend over to this boyfriend who you don't know well doesn't seem to be a promising idea. And it's not because I don't think Democrats have anything to offer, and it's not because I don't think Republicans have anything to offer. I think that black people don't have anything that they can demand because they don't understand what the government should be doing and should not be doing.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I am all about not voting as a monolith. I am all about that. I'm 100% advocating for black people to stop voting as a monolith. And I want you to take the time to research the candidates, not only on the national level, but on the local level as well, because the local stuff is what really affects you. What's going on in Chicago, the national level is a big piece, but their local government they're the ones that put these policies in place that allow this stuff to happen to them. That's the local area. So don't just look at, who your senator is, that's going to go to DC and the president. I'm not saying that those races aren't important. They are. But the people that you have in charge locally, Chicago and Baltimore are very similar. Baltimore hasn't had a Republican mayor in about the same amount of time. And I don't know the last time you've been to Baltimore, but nothing much has changed. It's still boarded up stuff all over the place. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. It's just not a big enough city. It's not like Chicago. We got the same things going on, but it's not like a Chicago. Chicago is maybe the third largest city in the country, if I'm not mistaken. So they're going to get way more attention than some of the other smaller towns that are dealing with the same thing. Because I'm sure Milwaukee's dealing with the same thing, just right up the road. But they're not going to get the same type of attention as Chicago. And I hope that, one, people see this and say, you know what, let's start doing some research. I'm glad that the sister could admit that, hey, I made a mistake. I voted solely because I liked the guy. I knew him and I liked him personally. She didn't think about anything from a policy standpoint. And I think black people need to continue to work towards becoming a lot more astute politically and get a full understanding of what the government's responsibilities are, and also get a full understanding of what your own responsibilities or what your responsibilities are for yourself. Because you're looking for money, but we lived in a time not so long ago where you could buy a home at 2 and 3% interest. And if you would have bought a home during that time frame, everybody I know that bought a home from 16 to 20, they're all sitting on at least $100,000 in equity. A lot of folks are sitting on a whole lot more during that time frame, and their mortgages are super cheap right now in comparison. Most people mortgages are cheaper than what people are paying for 1 and 2 bedroom apartments right now if they bought homes during that time frame. And we know historically in America, the number one way to generate wealth is through your home. That has always been the case. The number one way Americans generate wealth is through their home. You're going to pay it. You're going to pay your mortgage down, and your property value is going to increase, and you will be able to take loans on said property. You don't pay tax on those loans. See, those are the kind of things that we need to get a little more educated on, because it's one thing to go and get a job that pays you $100. It's another thing when your house is worth, X amount of dollars, and you got $200,000 in equity. You want to start a business. You can go take $50,000 in equity right out your crib. Tax-free. Tax-free. You don't have to pay tax on that money. And then you can go start your business. But a lot of us, we don't know. We'll go buy a car before we stack up a down payment and go buy a home. We're not. Some of us are. Some of us are getting better, but there's a lot out there. We still got a long ways to go. Like I said, I think by 2020, we were at 49.4% of homeownership in the Black community, which is phenomenal. Think about the wealth that's being generated right there. Those people that own homes and that are part of that 49%, think about the wealth that they're generating. Not only for themselves, but people talk about generational wealth. That's generational wealth right there. That's it. As a parent, your job was to make sure that you got your kid to a point to where they could be self-sufficient, and they were not depending on the school or the government to do that for them. It seems like we've gotten away from that, and a lot of us are hoping and depending almost 100% on the government doing something for us, educating us. We got to get away from that. We have to get away from that thinking, because if we get the sooner you get away from that type of thinking, the sooner you'll be able to flourish in this society, because it's built for us to win, but they're not going to give it to you. But it's built for us to win. It really is. And those of us that have taken those opportunities and taken advantage of those, they are winning. And those that are sitting there still waiting on a handout of some sort, they're going to be waiting for a very long time. And even if you chose to go vote, or you choose to go vote for the Republicans, there's no handout that they're going to give you. Matter of fact, the Republicans up front will tell you there's no handout for you. What we're going to do is we're going to pass policies to give you the opportunity to go get whatever you want. We're not going to get in your way. I think that's the thing that most people don't know. The Democrats want to tell you that they're going to do something, but not actually do it, and then create policies to block you from doing the things that you need to do. The Republicans are like, hey, we're not going to give you anything, but we're not going to stop you from trying to achieve or to gain whatever it is that you're trying to gain or achieve. We're not going to be in your way. That's the difference between the parties. And I would prefer the latter. I would prefer, don't give me anything, but don't stop me from achieving or obtaining whatever it is that I want. And I think a lot of Black folks are looking for a guarantee of something that's never going to happen. And I think that's the problem.
Well, there is no guarantee that anybody can offer them. And it's actually childish to be walking around as adults looking for a guarantee. But what I find absolutely fascinating is that this issue with illegal immigration is in fact imploding the idea of reparations. So you can't say, well, I want, let's say I have a 3-bedroom home and I live alone. The government can't come to me and say, well, listen, you have a 3-bedroom home. You don't really need this much space. So we need, we're going to have 2 people that don't have a home. They're homeless, or they're new in the country, whatever their circumstances may be. We're going to set them up in 2 of your rooms because you don't really need that much space. And we need some folks that need that space. The government would be wholesale redistributing wealth to do that. And Black people having now to face the idea of having to share underfunded and limited resources, with illegals, seem to be finding that to be a problem. You can't, on the one hand, say, I want to wholesale give the government the power to take my resources and do what they will with it, and then at the same time say, oh, I don't want them to come to my house and put illegals in my home or put homeless in my home. You can't do that. There's no logical sense in that. So in fact, this idea of reparations is being exposed as a scheme for the redistribution of wealth. And on the one hand, we see Black people very vocally being against the redistribution of wealth when their wealth has to be shared with new Americans or with homeless people. At those moments, we see that there's a real, critical kind of frustration. There's the point of impact. But on the other hand, they say, but white people's wealth can easily be redistributed over here to us. This argument is falling apart in front of our face.
It is. I mean, sometimes you got to get that wake up call. And I think that this administration gave Black people the wake up call that, honestly, in my opinion, is probably 40, 50 years past due, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, it took a complete catastrophe, of a situation and a complete mishandling of the situation at the border in order for Black people to wake up and realize that these people don't care about you. They don't have your best interests at heart. They never did. Your replacement is here. They're not coming. They're here. Dr. Claude Anderson talked about this back in the 90s. He talked about this back in the 90s. That dude is almost like a prophet at this point, because he said in the 90s, this would happen. He said that they're going to bring your replacement over here and Black people will become a permanent underclass in this country. He said that back in the early 90s. Are you familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson?
Yes, very, very familiar with him.
Yes.
And it's not just that Black people are going to be the permanent underclass. It's really poor people and middle class people, because what will eventually happen is that the quality in the standard of life, the money will become so inflated that the quality of standard of life is such that all of our standing of living is going down. I don't particularly see this as a exclusive situation with Black people. This is simply a situation that, if you look at our immigration as it has been over, say, the past 100 years, we've been very deliberate about how and when and who. We've had waves of immigration, and we tended to at least try. Maybe we didn't succeed, but at least the talking point was that we were having an immigration system that was to the benefit of Americans who are here. The talking point now has changed, which is we have an immigration system that is now to benefit the people who want to come. And that's fine if that's what the American people want and that's what the American people vote for. But what you cannot do is vote for something and then go, oh, but I didn't want that. Well, that's on you, boo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we'll wrap the video. We went a whole heck of a lot longer than we normally do, but I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Please, before you leave, make sure that you like, share, subscribe to the channel. Go check out Celeste Duffie's book, The Ass Backwards Way to Move Forward. That's a long title. I always get tongue-tied saying that. Please go check out her book. Like I said, the link will be down in the description box below. And go check her out on her channel, man. She's putting out some really fire content out there. Celeste_Duffie. Drop me a comment. Looking forward to hearing from you guys, man. I'm looking forward to hearing the comments from you all, in reference to this conversation here. And we'll go ahead and get out of here, man. Keep God first in your life. America first.